Hello everyone. This is the 18th part of the story, Abe the Wizard. Chapter 71, Killing the Prince. War Gen. One of the elite knights shouted when he saw Abel's transformation. During this shout, fresh blood spilled quickly from his wound, but he didn't seem to care. Instead, he turned to another knight and shouted again, "Take the prince and leave." This elite knight then immediately rushed towards Abel with a flash of combat chi. He knew that if he didn't strike now, he wouldn't be able to fight back as his injuries worsened. This was Abel's first encounter with an elite knight. Although the Wolf Rider long spear technique of the Wolf royal family can achieve maximum power without a mount wolf, it could still double the strength. Suddenly, there was a strange orc howl coming from Abel's mouth, and by howling, the spell of the Wolf Rider was added to his long spear. With technique number 11, Abel charged forward with the thrust of his spear. Within seconds, he was up close with the advancing knight. Abel didn't know the strength of an elite knight. But according to the Lord of Martial's intermediate knight interpretations, the elite knight's strength would not exceed 1,000 pounds and the combat chi would at most increase it to 2,000 pounds. This meant that it would destroy almost everything in front of him. Abel's strength was about 2,000 pounds, with an incomplete bonus of 3,000 pounds using the Wolf Rider's rifle. Alongside with the elite knight being already wounded, he doubted the knight could even reach 2,000 pounds. When the spear and the sword collided, the elite knight's sword directly flew off, but Abel's long spear did not stop. The long spear flashed a green light as it pierced through the elite knight's armor. It was like a thin piece of cloth, being poked with a blade of green light. Soon, it had penetrated the elite knight's body and went out from the other side. With an ear-piercing shout, Abel threw the elite knight out of his spear directly to the directions where Prince Wyatt was running towards. Another elite knight was covering Prince Wyatt as he ran towards the horse, heard a sound and looked back. To his surprise, he saw the dead body of his fellow knight come flying over. The other elite knight couldn't think of how was this possible. It all took place in just a few blinks of an eye. Even an injured elite knight could not be killed in such a short period of time. That elite knight did not use his sword to block the body as it would risk damaging it, so he just used his let it fly directly towards him. The moment the corpse came in contact with him, he finally understood why his fellow knight was killed in seconds. The force was so great that the high knight's body flew nearly a dozen meters flat, smashing Prince Wyatt to the ground as he limped toward the horse. Abel moved closer and closer to Prince Wyatt with his long spear, which sparkled in green light as he howled. The elite knight who had risen on his feet did not get any more injuries as the attack was blocked by Prince Wyatt, who was knocked to the ground and immediately fainted. The elite knight's eyes twinkled and his mouth whispered, "Are you a Wolf Rider from the Wolf family?" The Wolf family's Wolf Rider spear skill was a secret that was not allowed to be spread other than their family members. If any other orcs had learned these skills, they will be hunted by them. The Wolf family's number 11 long spear technique was infamous in the orcs and human world. Countless enemies had died in the face of this technique during battles. That flash of green light in the long spear along with the howl was their signature. Abel didn't listen and didn't want to say anything. No matter orc or human, he did not want to stop the spell. With Abel being 2 ranks lower than the elite knight, his only advantage was his tremendous strength. When it comes to fighting techniques, he was still miles behind. In terms of knight training, Abel had less than 1 year of experience. His time of becoming an actual knight was even shorter than that. For a rookie like him, a small mistake in these kinds of battles would lead to the death of Abel. The elite knight felt that his strength was draining away as he continued to lose blood and he couldn't wait anymore. A swirl of combat chi flew out from his big sword. This was the elite knight's long-distance combat chi attack. Abel couldn't help but quickly step back. In the face of an attack like this, Abel had no choice but to keep stepping back and try his best to slash away the combat Y with his green long spear. Luckily, this royal wargen technique lived up to its name. Every time the combat chi had gotten near him, he could always slash it away, which allowed him to keep stepping away. The attacks of the elite knight were getting weaker and weaker. With his vicious use of combat chi, the blood spilled even quicker out of his body. He made a final long-distance combat chi attack to Abel, and his combat chi was drained. This was a chance that Abel would not let go. The horizontally swept with his green long spear, sending the elite knight flying off his feet. However, instead of following up with the knight, Abel walked up to Prince Wyatt. At that time, Prince Wyatt began to slowly wake up from the concussion. When he opened his eyes, the first thing he saw was the terrifying face of a wargen. "No, no, don't kill me." Prince Wyatt did not care about anything else but preserving his life at this point. He would even embarrass himself just to beg for mercy to live. Abel was a wolf rider. In the human world, the orcs were every human's enemy. Abel had never heard of a human begging for mercy to an orc. Prince Wyatt was a knight, and as a knight who was begging to the orcs for mercy, Abel couldn't help but mutter in his mind, "Traitor." He had betrayed the dignity of being a human. "Dear Prince, Your Majesty, everything you have done to my uncle, I will now take your life in return." The human language suddenly came out from Wargen Abel's mouth. You are a human." Prince Wyatt suddenly realized, which he proceeded to promptly exclaim, "You are Abel, the Abel, I recognize your voice. Looks like I can't leave any evidence behind." Abel had a murderous look on his face. Then he took the spear out of his hand and aimed at the Prince Wyatt's throat. "No, please, don't kill me." Prince Wyatt, stunned by the cold from the tip of the rifle. As he pleaded softly for mercy, then screamed, "I don't know you, I don't know you. Be a good man next life." There was a flash of green light from the tip of the gun, and Prince Wyatt's throat was pierced. The pleading look on his face was suddenly gone. Looking coldly at Prince Wyatt on the ground, Abel shook off the blood on the tip of the gun. He then went over to the elite knight who was shot 10 meters away to investigate if he was still breathing. Shortly after, Abel called White Cloud once he observed that he was still alive. When Abel was returning to the castle, he asked White Cloud to fly as high as possible. After an hour, Abel appeared back in Harry's castle as he made a rare trip to the Blacksmith Guild to exchange some forging knowledge with Master Bentham. The news of Prince Wyatt's death was quickly sent back to him by the knight that Abel spared. When the king heard about Wyatt's accident, he immediately fainted due to sadness. The appearance of the wolf rider also frightened several nearby towns. Due to the high demand for guards, it made the mercenary in a few cities very rich. When the nobles were talking about what had happened to Prince Wyatt, many of them thought he deserved what had happened to him. However, the noble court of honor did give in due to the death of the prince. According to the words of the spirit, if a convict did not eliminate their crime, their spirit could not return to the Holy Continent. As for the Lord of Marshall's assassination attempt, a villa in Baikong City with the value of 100,000 gold coins was taken from the deceased Prince Wyatt and given to the Lord of Marshall for compensation. "I hope his soul can return to heaven," said the Lord of Marshall respectfully when he received the documents for the villa. It seemed that he had already forgiven what Prince Wyatt had done to him. Not only that, but he could even say these words of honor hoping the prince's soul may rest in peace. This action deeply touched the few royal secretaries who delivered the documents. The Lord of Marshall legendary modesty, bravery, and justice was really not just in vain. Abel knew personally that Lord Marshall was very pleased with the villa he revived was worth 100,000 gold coins. He knew that it would produce an annual income for Harry's castle. After this event, their lives seemed to go back to normal, and everything was calm once again. This event had intensified the tension between the royal family and the nobles. Alongside with King's health recovering, the conflict on the surface of the kingdom sank to the bottom again. Chapter 72, Forging Armor. In Abel's room, other than doing night training, Abel had spent all his time dwelling his table, drawing sketches of all kinds of armors from this world and his previous world. He had used up almost 10 sheets of lambskin. Lambskin was very expensive. They were all made by young lambs and cost around half a gold coin each. Therefore, everyone who could afford one would use it very carefully. Of course, you can get cheaper ones, but those had been mixed with the skin of rabbits, and nobles would not use them. Nothing could match the softness and ease of use of these skins from a young lamb. Moreover, the most important thing to a noble was their face, so they would never use a fake lamb skin no matter how poor they were. Their ink pens were normally made by the single thickest strand of feathers from the wings of a mature swan. After the feather had been plucked from the swan, it was steamed to melt off the fat within. Then, the heated feather would be plunged into a bowl of sand. After it had been cooled down naturally, it would be installed with an ink tube and pen tip. At last, a small hole would be open around 1 millimeter at the tip of the pen, and that's how these swan feather ink pens were made. Abel was getting used to the writing equipment of this world. He fully understood what could happen if writing paper was invented, and as an enthusiast of ancient history, Abel would never try to invent such a thing and try to change this world. The invention of paper was spread from the east to the west, which made almost an unlimited amount of information accessible to normal citizens and allowed society to rapidly develop. This world had already gone through tens of thousands of years of holy continent history, but Abel never heard of anyone coming up with any invention similar to paper. Therefore, through his speculation, this world rarely changed, and their culture was almost in a stale state. Abel was very satisfied with his current status in this world. The only thing that he cared about was his family and friends. With the secret he possessed, he would not try to change its culture. The only reason he had locked himself up in his room for 3 days was to come up with armor for his Lord Award with the king in 2 months. In a significant event like this, the quality of the armor was very important to every knight who was about to be awarded. It was a way to show their wealth and power to the citizens, fighting ability to the nobles, and bravery to the king. The 10 sheets of land were filled with sketches of the armors which Abel had learned to make. However, he was not satisfied. He wanted something more special. Since Abel was still very young, his body has not been fully developed. With the training of knights and his increase in strength since he had become an official knight, he was already a lot taller than most kids his age. He was 1.7 meters, which was the normal height of a normal adult. However, it was different for knights. Since all the food they ate was the best of quality, and the training they undergo was the most well-rounded, normally their height would reach at least 1.9 meters. So, normal knight armors were made according to the height of 1.9 meters. Since Abel was only 13 years old, he would be fine with just a simple armor for temporary use. For the Lord of Marshall, his favorite armor was that blazing sunset armor. Although, he would often take it out from the storage to polish it, and it was considered as very flashy in Harvest City. If he wore it to Beikong City, the capital of the Duchy of Carmel, it might seem a bit out of date. Abel wanted the Lord of Marshall to wear the most perfect armor in the time of his life, in front of his friends and family in Beikong City. The design of armors of his previous world used to be similar to the ones in this world. However, due to modernizations, and the influence of movies and anime, the armor design of his previous world had become extraordinary. Countless cosplayers had tried to replicate those armors with different materials. They released countless design sketches, some had even designed a CAD model. Since Abel's power of the will had increased, if he tried to quiet down, he could remember all of those designs from his previous world very clearly. As a person, he had been bombarded with information from the internet. Countless armor designs appeared in his mind. The elves' armor in The Lord of the Rings seemed to look good. It could fully express the slim and androgynous body of the elves. The elf-style engraving also seemed to look luxurious, but there was one big problem. It was not very productive, so Abel scrapped this idea. Then, the Warrior of Light's blue armor from Final Fantasy popped into Abel's mind. The armor had spikes on its shoulder blade, which looked very cool. However, its skin-tight design was a bit hard to achieve. How could he go to the Lord of Marshall and tell him to take off his clothes to let him measure his body? When the other blacksmith had already begun to construct their armors, Abel was still trying to choose one from his sea of designs. Suddenly, another armor had popped into Abel's mind. He could clearly remember the measurements and the CAD model of it, which was the armor of Saint Seiya, Knight of the Zodiac's golden armor. In total there were 12 parts to this armor. This was the armor of the Taurus. It was that it has two forms. One was in the form of a Taurus standing on all fours, and the other form was on a bodysuit, which also looked like Taurus. This Taurus armor consisted of a cow horn helmet, sharp shoulder pads, chest protector, back protector, waist protector, arm guards, leg guards, and shoes. Abel built the armor entirely out of 120 skills iron base. Since he had the blueprint memorized, the forging process went very smooth. He thickened the front of the helmet and the back protection of the armor. At last, a pile of gray iron armor parts was scattered on the floor of the operating room. As Abel stared at these gray iron parts of the armor, he couldn't help but feel like it looked very different from the shiny gold one he had imagined. Gray was the natural color of iron, although the quality was top-notch, the color looked quite ugly. There was other interesting equipment in Abel's operation room. For example, he was about to use the foot pedal polisher, which he often uses to polish his finest work. This thing held rapid spinning power by attaching a conveyor belt to the turntable. During the polishing process, whetstone was placed on the turntable as burnish, which was secured by straps of leather. Abel had created this machine so he didn't have to do hand polish. This machine could save him a lot of time and the result was a lot better as well. Abel picked up the parts of the armor one by one and placed them on the machine to polish, and then burnish. Soon the surface of the parts was completely smoothed, shining in cold lights. Although the color was still not perfect, it was much better than before. The material he was about to use had toxic mercury inside them. Therefore, Abel had worn a face mask for safety. He took out the gold leaf Steward Lindsay had brought and cut them into long thin strips. Afterward, he threw them into the furnace and added some mercury. Abel then used a gold rod to stir. After the gold leaves had completed dissolved into the mercury, he put them into a bowl of cold water for cooling. Soon the mercury had become a silvery gold paste. As Abel looked at the silvery gold paste, suddenly, he was struck with an idea. Could these gold paste count as a liquid? What if I combine them, will I get better ones? Since Abel was spoiled with money, he decided to shove the 3 chunks of silvery gold paste into the Horadric Cube. After he pressed the start button, the 3 chunks of paste disappeared, and soon a dark style crystal glass appeared inside the cube. Within the glass was some dark gold paste. Abel took out the dark gold paste from the Horadric Cube and closely examined it. Although he didn't know how the Horadric Cube ranked different liquid, he knew this dark gold paste he was holding was the most perfect and their highest quality. He mixed the gold paste with salt and alum until it became liquid. Then, he painted it on top of the parts of the armor. Afterward, he placed these parts of the armor on top of the furnace. He continued to spin them until their surface began to shine in gold, and soon, the mercury had been expelled. He continued to heat the armor parts on top of the furnace. As more and more mercury had been expelled, the gold of the parts became even shinier. Not sure if it's because this gold paste was combined into Horadric Cube, it was shining in a unique, yet eye-catching tone. The surface looked perfect, it was flawless even without any touch-ups. Abel did not care about the manufacturing cost. He continued with this gold paste formula for 3 more times. At least all the parts of the armor were shining in gold. Abel put the leftover gold paste into a jar, so he could use it for repairing the armor in the future. The armor had been forged. Afterward, he installed a diamond and began to draw the 12 #Thor rune with his rune pen onto the armor. The only step left was to ask the tailor and cobbler of the castle to design the lining of this armor. It took Abel 10 days of harsh labor to complete this armor. It was the longest time he had ever spent on making any equipment. Chapter 73, Earning Some Gold. In the next 3 days, Abel had forged himself a full body worth of equipment. They included armor, a shield, and a knight's spear. The armor was forged according to the traditional formula of this world. It was painted with blue on the outer layer, which suited Abel's age. He also drew the 12 #Thor rune on top of it and installed a diamond into a gap of the armor. Although the orcs had taken the blame for the prince's assassination, he was still worried that the royals would give him trouble for what he had done to the prince previously. Therefore, he must have adequate protection. After the process of becoming a lord had completed, Abel could demand his coat of arms. That way he could wear 2 medals when he attended any official events, his own coat of arm medal, and the blacksmith master medal. The knight's spear was an exaggeration big sword. It has a length of 5 meters. It looked like a long square pyramid, sharp at the top, thick at the bottom, which was equipped with a large surrounding handguard. Inside was the handle. This was not those ordinary one-time use wooden knight spear, it was made entirely out of 120 skills iron base with able enormous strength. This knight spear weighs more than 300 pounds, on top of that, it was equipped with the #Nef rune, which could rumble off an enemy. This knight spear could be a nightmare for any opponent. Just imagine, if someone was fighting against Abel in a battlefield. They would be continuously knocked back by this knight spear's special ability along with Abel's enormous strength. Every time they got knocked backward, Abel would have more time to execute his knight charging technique and knight acceleration technique. The power of these techniques would just more powerful with each strike. Therefore, under these conditions, Abel's opponents would be continuously knocked backward while being struck until their life had come to an end. Although Abel had already simplified his armor, and could only equip himself with his original ice magic sword. If anyone was to purchase this equipment in the market, its value would still be an astronomical number. At this point, Abel just wished his Mount Wolf Black Wind could grow up faster. If he could ride Black Wind while equipped with this equipment, it would be perfect. The little Mount Wolf Black Wind had entered its rapid growth phase after it has been cast with the Mount Strengthening spell. Now its difference in size could be seen every day. During the morning, Abel brought 2 ice magic swords and 2 fire magic swords to Harvest City on his carriage. The Lord of Marshall was concerned about the orcs' attack, so he strongly demanded Abel to bring at least a brigade of 6 beginner warriors along with him. Although the beginner warriors' fighting ability were not as great as knights, they could still use combat chi. Every single one of these 6 warriors was personally recruited by the Lord of Marshall from the battle force. They were all around the age of 40, which was the prime time of warriors. Abel couldn't explain to the Lord of Marshall that there wasn't actually any orc attack. However, he felt that the fewer people who knew about the attack on the royal family the better. The blame had been pushed to the Wirgins anyways. Therefore from now on, every time he goes outside he would need to bring a brigade of warriors with him. When Abel was approaching Edmund's auction house, the shop assistant immediately noticed the hairy castle coat of arms on the carriage from a distance. As soon as Abel got off the carriage, Ms. Yvette was already standing in front of the carriage waiting for him. "Edmund's auction house welcomes you, Lord Abel." Ms. Yvette then bent her knee and gave a quick salute. She was treating Abel with more and more respect. This miraculous teenager had become one of the most well-known people in Harvest City and was a godly role model for the child of every family. Abel felt very fortunate he could take on this role. "Thank you for the welcoming, Ms. Yvette." Abel then waved at the guards to take out the 4 magical weapons from the carriage trunk, which were wrapped in orc skin. When Lady Yvette saw the package, her eyes were filled with excitement. Since the attack on the Lord of Marshall as well as the killing of Prince Wyatt, the value of Abel's magic weapon would increase. Now, they had become the focus of all nobles, auctioning around the price of 50,000 gold coins. "Lord Abel, please come into the VIP lounge." Ms. Yvette saluted to Abel and led him into the VIP lounge. A guard was following closely behind carrying the package. When they entered the lounge the guard quickly placed the package on the table and left. Though she was extremely eager to see the magical weapons that Abel brought, she still poured a cup of coffee for Abel very politely. She waited patiently until he took a few sips before asking, "May I know why you are stopping by at our boutique shop today?" "I was very pleased with the last business with your boutique shop. This time I brought my latest batch of the magic weapon," said Abel, opening the package on the table and revealing 2 ice magic swords and 2 fire magic swords. "Was it Prince Wyatt who bought the magic sword identified by Master Thorin Oakenshield?" asked Yvette in a very concerned tone. The headquarters had repeatedly urged her to close another deal with Abel, hoping they would sell his magic weapons in Edmund's boutique shop. Moreover, Abel's magic weapon was a hot topic recently, which meant nobles will try to spend a large sum of money just to get their hands on one of them. Even if a knight didn't buy it, someone would probably buy it for their reputation. "Yes, these 4 magic swords, 2 ice magic, and 2 fire magic. They are all made with the 120 skills iron base," Abel replied. "Lord Abel, you may rest assured that none of them will be below Master Thorin Oakenshield's estimate when they were in the hands of Edmund. We at Edmund's can assure you of that, and your sale will be free of charge." Ms. Yvette didn't have that authority, but the message from headquarters demanded that she had to close a deal with Abel at all costs. So they gave her the most power in the matter. Edmund's boutique shop didn't really need to make any money off this auction. The attention they could attract from the fame of Abel was more than enough to bring profits to their shop. Since Master would only become even more famous in the future, if they would maintain Abel as their supplier, their boutique shop would be famous too. "I'm very pleased with your service, Ms. Yvette." Abel accepted Ms. Yvette's offer with a smile. As it was the first time this kind of ice magic sword had been offered for auction, Abel explained to Ms. Yvette the power of the ice magic sword. He flicked the blade of the sword with his finger, it flashed a blue light and soon his finger was filled with a layer of frost. Abel then proceeded to say, "The ice sword can attack enemies with 2 effects. One is to slow them down, with the frosting power of the sword. The other is the damage caused by the ice magic. Although it was not too powerful, if this ice magic was injected into the body of a person, it would be even more difficult to remove than combat chi. What a powerful weapon." Ms. Yvette, who is not a professional but she worked at a boutique shop. Therefore, she understood the properties of many weapons, and what slowing an opponent down in a battle could do. "Ms. Yvette, I need to buy some more potions. Please give me 27 blood-fusing potions, 270 replenishing potions, and 162 essence condensing potions." Abel was going to buy another month's worth of potion, which was a lot for any person. "Lord Abel, I'll send you these potions immediately. It will cost 20,250 gold coins." At first, there were some doubts about the fact of Ms. Yvette, but it had quickly disappeared. At that moment Abel felt a sense of relief in his heart again. Sure enough, his large purchases of night potions were very notable. It's enough for a normal knight to use more than 2 years, although it was a lot. Luckily it didn't send too much shock to Ms. Yvette. Soon more than 400 bottles of the potion were brought out in a leather-domed box. When Abe finished paying with his magic gold card, the figure was cut in half again. The card showed a number of 31,500 gold coins. Until his next auction, he could another month worth of potion. Of course, although this amount of potion was enough for more than 2 years of consumption for normal knights, Abel could finish it in 1 day. However, Abel was no longer in a hurry. His speed of development had already been very impressive. So Abel decided to take it slow, only use the potions in large doses when the necessary time arrived. This marks the end of part 18 of the story, Abe the Wizard. Thank you for listening. Please like the video and hit the subscribe button to listen more. Hit the bell icon to get notified of all the new content uploaded to the channel ASAP.